Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. We've had a conversation. I've been asked quite a bit to give my opinions on the M7 program. In April of last year, the U.S. military chose its next generation rifle. Originally, it was called the XM5, and then the government switched to XM7 because they didn't want to have confusion with Colt's M5 line, which to me absolutely made no sense because Colt's M5 version has nothing to do with the U.S. government term of M5. It was a Colt internal model number, had nothing to do with the U.S. government. There is no M5, 5.56 rifle in the U.S. government. But for whatever reason, the U.S. government decided they were going to switch it to M7. Now, I have very strong feelings on this because I feel that this was a big mistake, that this is not the rifle that's going to replace the M4, that we're going back to problems that we had saw in Vietnam. The reason why we got away from a full powered battle rifle cartridge and went to an intermediate cartridge to begin with. It appears as though the U.S. government over this last 10 years or so has been doing a lot of this. We have the problems with the M855A1 ammunition, but we learned the lessons in the Vietnam War about what happens when you have a cartridge that is not developed around the rifle. When you have a cartridge that makes the rifle go out of its design parameters. When you have a rifle designed for 800 rounds a minute and it goes up to 900 to 1,000 rounds a minute and you start having parts breakage and failures to extract, that's a problem. So we fixed the M16. We have the A1. The rifle worked great right up through the last 10 years or so with the introduction of the M855A1. M855A1, as soon as it was introduced, they knew that it was going to have detrimental effects on any gun that shot it. You're looking at 52 to 55,000 psi on a regular M855 M193. You're looking at nearly 63 to 64,000 psi on the M855A1. Proof cartridge is 70,000 psi. So basically, you have a new round which is nearly proof pressures. And that basically is giving you a half-life on the barrel. It's giving you problems with suppressors. The entire weapons platform has been compromised because of it. The individual carbine program, for instance, that entire program was canceled because of the M855A1. The guns that were introduced with M855 ammunition. You had your finalist, and then all the finalists were given M855A1, and that broke all the rifles. So we would have thought we would have learned from Vietnam the reason why you don't put ammunition in guns that cause the gun problems, but we went backwards on that. Well, there's another lesson that we learned in Vietnam was that an M14 could not win a battle up against an AK-47. In meeting engagements, which is what we were seeing now, we weren't seeing long-range battles like we had during they had somewhat of them in Afghanistan, but the trench war or the where you were getting 800-yard shots before in Europe and such. Those days were over. The new mechanized warfare that the Nazis introduced in World War II, where you bombarded with artillery and you bombarded with aircraft, bombing, and then the infantry would come in mechanized and sweep it up, and they were within 100 yards, close range. So we learned in Vietnam from the M14 that was not the way to go. That things had changed. And basically, once we switched over to the M16, we had the number of people who would engage during an ambush jumped up over 60%. If I recall, it was nearly less than 20% with M14s that would engage in an ambush with the enemy having an AK-47. When they issued the M16, that number shot up to over 90% would engage because of the perception of fire, and we started winning meeting engagements. Well, the entire concept behind the XM7 or the M7 program was to basically give a rifle that would be good for all environments. Well, look at it. This is a full power battle cartridge. Looking at a 6.8 by 51 millimeter, a 20-round magazine. You're looking at the same kind of a recoil that you would have with a 308. So now we have a smaller rifle. We have one that's not controllable on fully automatic. That's not going to win a battle against an AK-47. You're carrying less ammunition, and now we'll start talking about the ammunition as well. You are looking at 80,000 psi unsuppressed, and every one of these guns has a suppressor on it. So you're probably looking at least 80. So you add an extra couple 300, 400 rounds per minute to it. You're looking at 1,300 psi. Absolutely insane for as far as the operating conditions that this gun's going to be under. When it's so difficult that you actually have to have a metal insert on the back of the base of the cartridge to keep the base from blowing because of those pressures, that should tell you something. So now you look at the overall cost of this gun versus with the cost of the gun. Every gun comes with a sound suppressor, and now you have an optic on it. Basically, you have to have a college degree to be able to operate. Now, they're trying to make the individual soldier, someone who's going to engage targets, beyond 600 yards. This is totally impractical. Your average engagement is going to be within 100 yards. So the amount of money that they're spending on this thing for, as far as the gun itself, the optic, and the suppressor, I'm not sure the exact, but I'm thinking you're at least probably going to be around $3,000 a rifle to well over $2,000 to $3,000 per rifle, and you're trying to turn a regular infantry soldier into a sniper, which is not going to happen. I think very much what's going to happen with this gun is similar happened to the AN-94. The AN-94 was adopted by the Soviets in '94, and once they tried getting it into production, they saw that this was not going to happen, so they ended up adopting it in limited numbers. I see the life of the M7 as being very, very limited. I see it being neat at first, and then when soldiers actually have to carry this thing into combat, they're going to see it's heavy, it's bulky, it's not as controllable on their M4, especially if they're going to be involved in meeting engagements. And I see them going back to their M4s. I think this is one of those things where the military got themselves into something with this entire next generation weapons program. There was a lot of money that was dumped into it, and they've been trying to replace the M4 M16 series for over 60 years. They've been trying to do that, and they've always come back to it because it works. Overall, it was the best system, for our soldiers for modern day warfare. Now, to try to have one rifle to do it all, we tried that in the early 1970s with the 6mm by 45mm 6mm saw program. That was the first time that rifle was actually, we tried doing one rifle that would work for everything. Replacing it in the M60 machine gun and having a rifle, and it was found that it just didn't work. You basically have to look at what environments you were going to be in, and for the most part, everything that we've been dealing with since the Vietnam War has been close quarter battles. That is not what this rifle is developed for. Is there a place for it? Yeah, we do have opportunities for things such as Afghanistan, where you do have the opportunities for longer range shots. That's where the M14s came out of war stock because they needed something that was going to go further, and they didn't have an ability to get more M110s in at the time. So there are times where this is good. Probably one of the better options was to adopt some sort of an over to AR-10 that mirrored the M4. So soldiers who were going to an area like Afghanistan where they were going to be up in the mountains and needed a 308, you would have an AR-10 type rifle like in the LMT or like Knights or like the Colt LE-901. You would have a rifle that was chambered in that caliber that you'd be able to switch to but have the same muscle memory. But then when you got into your typical combat, you would still have the 5.56mm version. Or if you wanted to get even more creative, probably one of the better ways they could have gone with the next generation is gone with a SIG Light chambered in 6.8 SBC. You still would have the same size cartridge, but you would still maintain your ability to have suppressive fire, controllable fire. You still be able to carry just as much ammunition. You still would have all those benefits, for a meeting engagement and for the typical kinds of combat that we see. That would have been a better way to go. But, my overall opinion is this rifle is going to see the same fate as a lot of these other ones that have tried to replace it, just like the SCAR. The SCAR was supposed to be the new gun for SOCOM. Well, guess what happened? The SCAR Light was completely a flop. They went back to M4s. You did have some special operations units that went into the HK 416s, but by far, most of SOCOM uses the M4A1. They did like, however, the SCAR Heavy for a DMR purpose and for use in places like Afghanistan, so they adopted that on a limited basis. Not a lot of them, but they were used on a limited basis for that environment. And that's exactly what I see happening with this rifle here. It's going to be cool at first until guys got to start carrying it, until guys start actually using it in combat, and they end up having to get into meeting engagements, ambushes, close quarter battle. Then this is going to show that this was not a good idea. So overall, the machine gun I think is fine. Again, the thing I'm concerned about the belt-fed machine gun for the next generation, a squad automatic weapon. I think that I really want to see what the barrel life is. How long the barrels will hold up to that cartridge compared to a 7.62. I think that would be interesting to see. But if it can hold up to that, I don't really see a problem with that for the longer range capabilities. If the gun will hold up to it. But for as far as this replacing the M4, I don't think so. I think the M4 is going to be with us a lot longer. I think we got at least 20 to 30 more years out of the M4. My overall opinion is we're looking at a peak in development history right now. You're looking at 60 years of the M16 M4 carbine. You've seen it evolve, but overall there's been nothing better. Sometimes you hit a peak in your development cycle. Basically, there's no way to improve upon it. In my opinion, as long as we have a metallic cartridge, like a primer, cartridge case, bullet, and powder, I think we've reached a developmental peak with the M16 M4 series. The one thing that we're going to see different from here is going to be different materials for barrels, more uses of polymers. We see different materials. Looking at the operating systems, we're looking at the same operating systems that we've had since the turn of the last century. If you're looking at auto-loading rifles, you're looking at pistons, you're looking at a operating rod that impacts against a bolt carrier, or you're looking at a long stroke that operates from a piston that moves a bolt carrier all the way back, with the M16's internal piston being probably one of the newer ones. But we're using the exact same operating systems that we've been using for well over 100 years. The only thing that's changed throughout the years is going from wood and steel to aluminum and polymer. And we're seeing more and more guns that are getting rid of the wood, and they're going with the polymer. We're seeing lighter types of materials being used. But overall, we're seeing the exact same systems. So I think we're going to be seeing the M4 going for a lot longer. You may see some versions, I think, over the years with some different calibers. You may see them chambered in different calibers, such as 6.8 SPC or 6mm ARC. Those calibers are starting to get a little bit more interest throughout SOCOM, especially the 6mm ARC. So you are seeing some newer calibers, but you're seeing the familiar platform, the platform that's worked for the last 60 years, that has been evolved. If you look at the original, AR-15 from the late 50s, early 60s, you look at that compared to a current, M4 that's being used by SOCOM, you see a lot of evolution. But you see the exact same operating system, the exact same way that it works. The changes have been in size and the way the bullet's designed, and lessons learned from as far as materials are concerned, to make the gun stronger. That's where I see us going in the future. So, again, my opinion, I'm sorry, SIG, but I think that what they chose is going to prove to be problematic, and that it's going to end up getting canceled, or it's going to be bought on very limited numbers. It's not going to be the next U.S. infantry rifle. But again, people have asked me what my opinions are on that. I basically wanted just to sit back and watch what was going on with it. Talking to people who've used them, to say, it's not so bad. The recoil is not so bad, which is fine. But the guys who've used them on fully automatic say a different thing. The guys on semi, they have one thing to say. Most of the guys who've actually gotten their hands on these things, for the guys who do what I do, there's only been a few of them that's actually got their hands on one of these new guns, and it's been in 308. It hasn't been with the new 6.8x51, so they haven't had a chance to mess around with that one yet. And there was a very small run of these that was over $10,000, if I recall. They were offered by SIG, as a package, which is absolutely crazy. So again, I don't know everything. He's talking to a guy who's been in this industry for 30 years, who's worked with militaries, who's been part of weapons replacement programs, and who's seen how things have evolved over the years and how things haven't. This is just my opinion. So I hope you guys do enjoy this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. Thank you.